You're listening to Polished Woman, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, Polished Women!
Hi!
I'm excited to be back. Today's episode is I don't know. It's a heart wrenching. What do you call that word? Episode because it's about moms and children with illness and health issues. So I'm so happy to have Raelyn and Bonnie here with me as my guest host and my guest. And so I want to say that anyone who has children knows how difficult raising them can be. There are no rule book. There are guides, but what may be exactly right when it comes to one child can be completely wrong approach for another. Dealing with things like their first crushes, the latest trends they're caught up in, and hoping that they're actually listening when you talk to them can be difficult. But the concerns are different when you're the parent of a child who has long-term health issues or terminal illness. Today is going to be a learning experience for me. While I recently lost my father to illness, I know that it is very different from what our guest for today and thousands of other parents out there who are dealing with the same issues in raising their children. So, my guest co-host for today is Bonnie Marquez.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. She's the founder of Payton's Project, a nonprofit organization named after her son, Payton, who has the Shen Muscular Dystrophy.
Correct. Correct.
Did I say that right?
The Shen Muscular Dystrophy.
Yeah,
That's
it's
hard word.
It's DMD, and of course I have my good friend on my right side, Raelyn Auge, and her son has cystic fibrosis, right?
Cystic fibrosis.
Yeah, so we call it CF in short. So I want you to explain to everyone what does DMD mean and what does cystic fibrosis mean.
Right. So Duchenne muscular dystrophy, it is a muscle wasting disease, and it's a terminal illness, and it's mostly in boys, some girls, but very rare. It's a genetic mutation. It comes from the mother's side. In 70% of the cases, it's from the mother. But in 30%, like mine, it's just random. So we couldn't have predicted that he would have Duchenne. And he was diagnosed at the age of 6, and they basically told us your son's gonna, lose all muscle form and go into a wheelchair, and he probably won't survive into his 20s.
What?
So that is, at the age of 6, that's a hard diagnosis to get.
Yeah. And is he your first?
He's my second. So I have 3 boys.
Yes.
He's the middle.
So and he's the only one.
He's the only one that has it. That's why we figured that I wasn't a carrier, because the other 2 do not. And how we found out is because we had a third who was much taller than, at the age of 2, was almost taller than he was, and they're 4 years apart. And I said, something's not right here, I mean, I knew he was short, but I didn't think that was an issue. I thought, he's just short.
Yeah, I wanted to explain us later, like how you found out and stuff. So, Raelyn, what does cystic fibrosis mean? I mean, if for everyone that we all know it's CF, we read it, but then how, what is the illness?
I think the simplest way to explain it is an abnormal transfer of water and salt into and out of our cells.
Okay.
So that causes a sticky mucus to build up. And in the CF children, it builds up in the lungs, and that can lead to the life-threatening lung infections, which will eventually limit the ability to breathe. So there's lung transplants, and there's so much research being done, and their lives have been extended. They used to not make it until to elementary school. So now kids,
but now
some are living longer, some into their 50s and 60s, but and sadly, like I'm still meeting families that are losing people very young. And worldwide, they're saying that half the population of the CFers is now over 18. So
good.
And that's good. But as a parent, that's not good enough.
And as a parent,
but we're
not,
grateful, but it's not good enough.
So it's the same thing. How did you guys find out, the illness of the health issues of your kids? Like you told me at age 6 you found out, but what made you realize there is something going on?
Well, for us, it was, I thought that he was just shorter than the rest of them, so we went to start maybe to get growth hormones with him, and we really thought that we were going to go meet the endocrinologist and get growth hormones for him. Well, that simple blood test led to a year process to figure out that he had Duchenne. Wow. It was torture. You know, they came back to us with a bunch of information that we couldn't even process. And then, so my husband and I went through days and days of testing, and our pediatrician was like, yeah, I think it's probably muscular dystrophy, you know, but don't look it up on the computer and the internet. So of course we did.
Oh God!
And
I know, that's the first thing you always do.
And my husband and I were crushed. I mean, we cried for days knowing that, you know, if you look at it, what the outcome is going to be for your child. And we still didn't even have a diagnosis. We just thought it could be. And then we, you know, went into denial like most parents do. You just, oh, it can't be that. It's got to be something else. They had made a mistake, all that stuff. But he had to have blood tests. He had muscle biopsies, which is really counterintuitive to the fact that he's losing muscle mass anyways, and they're taking it out. And he's had 3 of them. And I had genetic testing, and he had genetic testing, and they told us that it was Becker muscular dystrophy, which is
what is that?
It's a different form of it that is less progressive than his. His is the most progressive form of it. And then when we went into our final diagnosis, they started talking to us about Duchenne, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And they said, yeah, his genetic makeup is Duchenne. So it really, and they told us go home and love him. There's nothing you could do about it, but that wasn't good enough for me. So we've done quite a bit of other research and
you
stuff.
want to know what they did, right? And so how about you, Ray? How did you find out about Donovan?
I had just gotten married, and I was, I was 15 weeks pregnant.
Okay.
No, I was probably about 13 weeks pregnant, and my doctor did a genetic test, and I went in, you know, just to visit and see how the baby was doing, and he said, oh, he let me know your test results came back that you're a carrier for CF, and I was
you
like,
are
me, I'm a carrier, and I was like, what? And I had heard of a kid that had it when I was in high school, but I knew nothing about it, and he was like, oh, it's no big deal, Ness. Your husband is a carrier. And at the time, the statistic was 1 in 25 Caucasians are carriers. So he said, you know, it's possible, but the chance of you both being carriers is, you know. So my husband went in, and he walked out of the parking lot with his paperwork with all the results, and we just knew. So then at that point, it was a 1 in 4 chance that our baby would have CF. So we had the option of having him and doing there was a screening you can do at birth, so we had that option, or we could do the amniocentesis, and they would test fluid and see if he had it, and so we could do that to find out before he was born. So we decided to do the amnio and find out if he had CF before he was born. That way we could have him prescribed medication the day he was born.
But does CF run
and get an early start on the disease.
But does CF run in your family, or?
In the family tree, there had been no signs. And on his side, we went and looked at the family tree, and there was one little girl that had passed away in the family tree, and they said from a broken heart, like so long ago, like they traced way back, but that was all they could explain. So we thought maybe it could have been CF, but we'll never know.
Oh my gosh! How can you advise all these moms out there that are in denial? And there's a lot of them, right? When you find out that your child has some illness or disease, you just know this is not going to happen. This is not my child. You know, they're all in denial, and I'm sure you guys felt the same way, right? When you found out. What did you?
Right, for sure. We were in denial, but I mean, at some point you have to come to grips with it. Yes. And I think, everybody does deal with it differently, and we chose personally to found Payton's Project. So we thought, we're going to do good things in the world, because the other thing is we had the means, we had the health care, both of us work. We were able to provide him the level of service that he needed.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of families aren't.
Yes.
So, and we know that there's a lot of equipment and out there for kids to help them through this process. Just because they have a disease doesn't mean they shouldn't be part of life. Yes. So we founded Payton's Project, and that was our way of putting our resources and focus on something more than just his diagnosis and making it bigger. So we chose to go out and speak to the world in this, setting and talk to people about it. Other people, they just don't, they can't. And I understand that too. So we're going to help them be their voice to get this out in the community. And I can't tell you how many people now come to me and say, oh, I saw this on Duchenne, and there's this, and how about that? Because they know about it now, where
Yeah.
6 years ago they didn't
Yes.
know it even existed.
I know.
So I think that's how we put our resources and kind of diverted our attention in able to. And Peyton is the greatest spokesperson for Duchenne. I mean,
Wow.
he talks about it and understands it, and I think it's given him an independence and a goal as well. So that's how we've done it. Yeah, it's hard at days. I cry when we lose a child, and because I feel like they're all ours. We could all be in that situation where our child dies at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12. It happens all the time. So it just happened a couple weeks ago with one of the kids, and it was devastating. It's soul crushing for our community because at any point it could be us on the, like, as much as I don't worry about Peyton as much right now, I know that in an instant he could get sick, he could get pneumonia, he could get bronchitis, and that could lead to so many other problems,
How did you explain this, Raelyn, to your other child about, how do you explain this to the other members of the family, having?
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because they just kind of they're around everything that they are figuring it out. They're learning, like they're sponging everything up. But our second child wasn't born yet when Donovan had it. But then, so Reese was born 2 years later, and he's not a carrier, and he doesn't have cystic fibrosis. So it was really interesting him watching his big brother, and they're going through this too, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So Donovan does treatments, and he has to wear a vest that shakes the mucus out of his chest. And we have photos of Reese sitting right next to him with another vest, but it's on his dinosaur. And Reese is patting his dinosaur, trying to get the mucus out of his dinosaur. And then it's crazy. But you're so sweet.
Because I know these kids.
no, but they really do go through, and so there's times when Donovan's like, Reese, you don't have to deal with it. And I said, but he does.
Right.
When Donovan's in the hospital and I'm at the hospital with him, or Dad's there, we're all there, Reese sometimes is, with family or alone and separated from us. So Reese is going through so much in a completely different way.
I know. Can you?
And they're so strong and amazing too.
Yeah,
the
they're
siblings.
compassionate.
They don't get enough credit.
And they don't get enough of our time and attention. And my oldest son talks about it, like when we do fundraisers, he talks about the sibling effect and how hard it is on the siblings and the family. But we've had these conversations, and I've said, what would be worse for you, if I didn't try to save his life, or if I spent the time and attention on, so they understand that it's not more important, but it is a family thing that we're going through, and
you
it's
have
really
to be all together.
But we try to give them the attention that they deserve as well. But I think it just makes them almost better people, they're into the fundraising and the way they protect him. My oldest son doesn't even see it. He's always near him. He's always makes sure he carries him up and down the stairs, and he does all this just naturally because and he told me one day, he goes, Mommy, you didn't even tell me he had Duchenne. I just figured it out because we went to, because he was only 8. And I was like, oh my, I'm so sorry. I never told you. But it just, how do you tell an 8-year-old? And he just kind of figured it all out by going to all those doctor's appointments. I was like, well, I parent failed right there. I mean, who knows?
How do
you don't know what to do.
As a mom and as a wife, how do you find strength from this situation?
Well, you lean on other people that are really strong.
Right?
And, well, in marriage, you have each other, but Bonnie and I have talked about this before.
You help her a lot, right?
She helps me so much, but the men
people.
just everybody deals with it differently. And when we found out Donovan had CF, I was really sad for like a long time. It was really, really hard on me. And I was home with him and doing the treatments all the time, and doing the pills, and Dave was so helpful, but he would escape, to the TV shows and to the work, and he could escape our reality for a little while, but I was always in it. And so we dealt with it differently, and I just feel like sometimes you have to lean on your girlfriends because your husbands can't give you everything you need in that aspect.
Did this affect your marriage in some way?
Oh, 100%. Because after we found out our son had CF, we were completely different people.
Yeah.
And so we had just been married. You find out your son has this crazy disease that you know nothing about. And so if I'm so sad for a while, and then my husband was angry, and so you've got a sad person and an angry person, and it changes you, and it takes a long time. You have to work on yourselves, and so some marriages really lean on each other, but for us it tore us apart a little bit. But then the one thing that we did learn was that like money was never important to us.
Yes.
So we always said,
She always tells me that. Yeah.
we started with nothing when we found out we were pregnant with Donovan. We were like at the Castaic Inn. We had no home.
Yeah.
We both just lost our jobs. And we always said every dollar we made, we would make memories with it. And so
And look at
married 12 years later, my husband's producing some of the biggest TV
Yeah.
shows. And
Yeah, I
our
know.
kids are living an amazing life and making great memories.
Yeah. That's why she. I'm sorry.
So
I
we are
never
the crazy
show.
people that just like blow money making memories
Yeah.
and buying the front seat ticket for our kids.
She always have a soft spot in my heart. This girl,
Aw,
and
thanks,
she's really like a
Jess.
good friend, you know. And she's like there for you. How
She's genuine.
she's genuine.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like tell everyone because sometimes it's hard for them to like. Because you
Yeah.
know she's married to a big producer and she's like very a little bit like okay, but then she, like literally, I just want to say this. She's one of the best person.
It's
She has
true.
a
Thanks,
good
Jess.
heart.
That's true.
Thank
She
you.
is, yeah.
You're so sweet.
So how do you
Yeah.
find time for yourself with all this? How do you enjoy, you know, yourself? Because we talked about this in my previous, right? Matt? We talked about this, how self-care. Because how can you give so much love to your kids if
Right.
you don't have love,
Right.
you know, in yourself? So how do you find time for that?
You're at the gym at 5:30 in the morning, and you
right.
don't sleep much. I mean, and for years I did. We were so focused on
Yeah.
him, and you know. But I'm just getting back to it. But yeah, it's hard,
Yeah.
and I do think, especially I think Raelyn and I had such a connection immediately when we were introduced to each other because. In your group of friends, how many have a child with a terminal illness? How many go
I
through?
know.
How many understand doctor's appointments? And where our kids, their diseases are named different. We go through a lot of the same thing with how much it costs, having to give them pills all the
Yeah.
time, having to go to the doctors, be in hospitals, having siblings. So for us, that connection was instantaneous, and it's nice to have somebody that you don't have to explain things to. And then the
Exactly.
funny
I
thing
know,
is that we
that's
don't
so
really even
true.
talk about the illnesses and stuff. We just have become friends and talk
Yeah.
about everything else. But everything is compacted a little differently because you have this issue. So
Yes.
whether it's marriage or working out or whatever, there's just this little thing that we know. We don't even have to say it. We just know it's always an issue. And then, you know, if I called her, she would be there for me.
I know.
And if, you know, if she called me, I'd be there for her in a heartbeat because it's just something that you can't explain. And I'm sure she's probably had the same thing where you lose friends along the way because they just
Yes.
cannot deal
Yeah.
with it. And I always tell people that are new to the diagnosis, whatever it is, let them go. It's okay because
okay.
if you're open to it, great people will come into your life. People that like Raelyn or Lindsay and people who want to do stuff for you and will truly love your kids.
Yeah.
You know, and they're good people and just like I've had more blessings knowing that he has this illness and so is he than really the opposite, like because we've been open to it. We've talked to people about it, you know?
Yes. Can you tell everyone how they can find support, like, you know, other female support or women's support out there? Like, like for example, if someone who is listening right now is going through this same thing, how can they find that support out there?
Well, there's a lot of information on
Yeah.
the
Do they-
Cystic Fibrosis
yeah.
Foundation website, cff.org.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do need another mom to talk to, you can email me,
Yeah.
Raelyn
Right.
Auge
Yeah.
at iCloud.com.
I know. Do you have
And-
any website or any like
Yeah.
any organization or anything where they can, you know, contact
Bonnie
you?
has Payton's Project
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they can contact
Yeah,
directly.
Payton's
yeah.
project. It's Payton_project.org. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I might have to look
Okay.
at that. But Payton's project. It's also on Facebook and as well. So, but yeah, Payton's project. And I would say, like the internet's been a great place in all of these groups and stuff, but it can be overwhelming. So like. Just sort out the stuff that you need. You're ready for it when you're ready for it. Leave the other stuff away, you know, because it can become overwhelming, all of the information that's
Yes.
out there. And sometimes I just have to shut it down because it's too much sometimes.
It's too much.
But there are then great resources, and I've made great friends because of it. Where I
Yeah.
said I'd rather have met you on the soccer field. We've met this way, and you're really awesome, you know?
So true.
How about, this is actually very important, how about financial, you know, stability? How if you're someone that does not, because I know Raelyn, you do a lot of fundraising for the CF, you know, for the CF kids. How if you don't have the finances? Who can help you?
Well, it's part of what there's a lot of resources out there for it, but it's an expensive disease.
It is,
so everybody
right?
has to do it differently, and and we haven't gone to the point where we're looking at like state.
Yes.
I have no idea how to even do that, and I'm sure at some point but that's where I'm in denial as well. I know when he turns 18, I'm gonna have to do that. That's one of the biggest things, and it breaks my heart when I see somebody who needs a shower chair, like and it's like it's so vital to just them being a human, and it breaks my heart, and that's why we want to do what we can do to get them the equipment that they need. There are support groups, but I think it's challenging, and I think debilitating for parents and isolating. I think that's one of the biggest things, is it isolates parents when they have a sick child and they can't give to them, and they're constantly with them 24 hours a day. It's really isolating and depressing, and I think that's one of the bigger things that we have to talk about in the communities, the women helping women with the depression and the isolation, and how do we do that? I just don't even know.
So looking forward, what's one thing that each of you hope for your son?
To live a long life.
It's exactly it. That they live is not just a long life, but a quality life. Because they need. It's hard. I mean, I just try not to think about it, but yeah, for sure, long life.
And to be happy.
To be happy. I see that.
I just want them to be happy.
I mean, I'm with Raelyn, like make the memories. That's what, make memories. We took our son to Europe this year. We took him to Australia last year. It's not easy. It's hard because he's disabled. But we're going to do it, my husband.
Can you say that you have learned something from them, from your own son?
Oh, gosh, every day.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, how can I complain when my kid's getting up at 5:30 in the morning to clear his lungs and all the things that they have to do?
All the sacrifices all these women have to do.
They're just amazing little warriors. You know? They really are.
They are warriors.
And you don't forget these kids when you meet them.
No, you don't.
You
don't.
They're so strong and powerful and brilliant.
By the way, Raelyn has written a book. out of this pain and sacrifices and everything that happened in her life within that 12 years, she was actually the one. Max, can I tell you, she was the one who actually persuaded me to write the book. And she came with me every Wednesday. Yeah, and I forgot my book. Days like a girl, really like her. And her book, I hope. Yeah, I know it's gonna be big out there on TV.
I hope it turns into a movie.
So
the name of my book is Production Wife Diaries. Look for it around the holidays on Amazon. And I really think that it goes along with your show. It's woman helping woman, and there's a lot of things that I think every woman can relate. I talk about the diagnosis of our son. I talk about family. I talk about the ups and downs of marriage. I talk about the struggles with myself and my self-love. And I talk about so much that I think that it's an easy read and you can learn a lot from it.
Did you ever lose self-love with the process and everything, and just gave it to your son?
I think I don't know that I lost it. It's that I just didn't focus on it.
Okay.
I think you just give it to everybody else, and you do put yourself last. And I think that's women in general that have kids. I don't even think, maybe even women in general, they will put themselves last. It's just a little more challenging when you have a child that has a terminal illness.
And I think with marriage, I don't know, this is, for example, like our daughter is sick or something, it right away, instantly you just have this thing with your spouses right away, right? Instead of like being sweet to each other, sometimes you get irate with each other. That's not what it is. I don't know. I feel like somehow it can be how do you say this? It can be like not bad for your marriage, but somehow it affects the marriage in a way, right? Yeah. Max, right? I don't know if that's true, or
If what? If what is like? If self-love affects your marriage, or if the diseases affect?
The disease affect your marriage in some
Sick kids.
way.
Well, it makes your marriage stronger, but it
Yeah.
can break you at times too. I mean, you've got. Well, for my husband and I, we were both very stubborn people, so we knew that getting married alone was going to be hard for us. We'd have to work hard.
I know.
Then you throw,
And then you have this.
you throw an illness into the mix, and you know he's got a way of doing his treatments. I've got a way of doing his treatment. You know, so it's a lot of compromising and just trying to figure out what works.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A lot of marriages break up. I mean, that's just when a kid is diagnosed with the illness. It's just the fact. It's hard to deal with. But it made our marriage stronger.
But so finally, can you each share one piece of advice for any listeners who may suspect that their children are sick but but they don't have yet the official diagnosis?
So you're talking about the parents that know something's wrong with their child and they don't know what it is yet.
Yes.
I think that part you're probably feeling like you're drowning.
Yeah.
But so I think, as crazy as it sounds, you just have to keep going, and,
Keep
and
fighting.
eventually you're gonna get to the surface.
Follow
of it.
your instincts for sure. Like, I mean, I pushed a lot to get my kid diagnosed.
Yes.
And they would ask me, "Are you a nurse?" Because I researched everything I possibly could, so I knew what they were talking about.
Right, and we know other families, their children were diagnosed years after they were born, so they went a very long time with that hard struggle of something's not right. My kid's losing weight. My kid's sick all the time. So just keep going. Trust your intuition.
Yeah, trust your
As
instincts.
women, we do have to trust our gut.
So don't lose hope, ladies.
No.
If you're going through the same situation, don't lose hope. Keep fighting and
And live life.
live life. Be
And
happy.
perspective is everything. Just make the best out of everything.
Every
you
day's a
dealt.
gift.
Yep.
Yeah, every day is a
Every
gift.
breath is a gift.
Yeah. Write about it. Write about it. So for today, I'm very speechless. I don't know what to say.
It's a hard topic.
It's a hard topic because I think every topic here that I do, I always had an experience. But this one, it's I don't know. I'm so sad, but I'm happy that you are both fighting. I'm happy that you're both getting it out there and letting everyone know that there is hope.
There is.
Okay, I do not normally try to repair or mend into a mother and child relationship unless they come to me for advice or unless I'm really close to them. Because it's hard to advise, another parent about parenting. So also unless I have the experience that I can share to them. Raising a child is a very sensitive issue for every parent. So my advice is if you have a friend who has a child with health issues, be there for them. Comfort them and extend help when needed. Being a parent alone is already a difficult and very challenging. What more if you have a child with health issues? I cannot imagine both of you ladies work on your everyday challenges with your life. I'm so proud of you both.
Thank you.
And to all parents out there who are in the same situations as theirs. Okay, my tip for today, and if you are one parent with the same issue as theirs, please do not stop researching, as what they've said, finding out the cure, find a support group, and most of all, pray that things will be better, because that's the only way. Do not stop hoping, because there is hope. So if you'd like more information about how you can support Payton's project, please go to their website.
Yeah, paytonsproject.org.
And then Raelyn's.
Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, CFF.org, is an amazing site to
Yeah.
get so much information and even get connected to support groups.
I've been there. I would go to their fundraisings. Okay, so that wraps up our episode for today. I don't know. Okay,
Thanks,
remember,
Jess.
love one
Thank
another
you.
and give love to the first person that you see today after this show. Well, after watching the show. Cheers, ladies.
Cheers. Thank you.
Oh, it's been me cry.
You're listening to Polished Woman, only on LA Talk Radio.